Thank you for joining us on this bonus episode of the Side Squad podcast. I am Duncan, and let's get started. So we're going to start with the Raw stage last week here. I liked it. A lot of people were iffy about it. I like that. It kind of reminds me of a half pipe. Overall, it's just cool. I was so happy to see Pyro back. And then, of course, The Fiend is the greatest thing on TV. And so I was very happy to see all those segments. If we move on to NXT and AEW, both were pretty good shows overall. I would like to say, though, that I think that NXT was a little better. Not necessarily on the look, but overall as performances and storytelling. It was really highlighted by Riddle versus Adam Cole. I would say that was probably the best match of the night for me. It was just a great back and forth competition. It was awesome that it started off the card, actually. But that wasn't the only thing that I was happy about for this first show, 2 hour whatever on USA. Finn Balor's return was huge. I'm very happy to see Finn Balor return back to NXT. I hope that this is a regular thing, and I hope that this is a start for some other performers, such as, I don't know, but there's some other performers that, such as Apollo Crews, per se, who were great on NXT, and once they got to the main roster, kind of, I don't want to say were misused, but weren't shown to their best of the potential that they had. Of course, Breezango both go back down to NXT. I think that was the start of that. But to see Finn Balor was awesome. And I'm really curious to see what happens with Tommaso Ciampa coming out with Adam Cole. He's back. Curious to see how that works with Finn Balor also targeting Adam Cole. It'd be kind of cool to see a Tommaso Ciampa versus Finn Balor match. It's definitely a dream match, I would say, especially with what both of them have gone through over their career. And I don't know who would win that match, actually, because it's a great matchup. And then Shayna Baszler looked like $1 billion out there. Sioux Falls, their home, were based in Sioux Falls. It was a great match. Really showed Candice LeRae as the underdog. And Shayna Baszler is here to stay. It made Shayna Baszler look scary. And I really like that for her character and everything. And then Johnny Gargano versus Shane Thorne. If you didn't know who any of these two were, and you're just flipping between AEW and NXT, if you're watching the match and you're watching for the matches, that was definitely, I would say, probably just as good, if not better, than all the matches on AEW on Wednesday night. Just one hell of a performance. According to the numbers, NXT got less viewers, but of course, supposedly, right, there's 2 million or whatever viewers total. I think that number was actually a little less. I just think a lot of people were flipping channels back and forth. I personally was watching it on both at the same time with different screens, but I know there's a lot of people flipping back and forth. But if we move on to AEW, kicking off the show with Cody versus Sammy Guevara was a great way to do it. It's a little unconventional, and I really liked the match overall. The first match in AEW, I would have liked to see somebody huge, like Dean Ambrose or Jon Moxley versus Cody, something just to kick off that show. But I understand why they did it this way. So as I was saying, NXT had the better wrestling show, but AEW had a better productionist show, because of all the fireworks, all the pyro. Just it had a big time feel to it, whereas NXT is staying with their roots, which I like better, personally, but to the casual viewer, the people who I haven't watched it, I know I talked to somebody in college this week, when some random guy was wearing a Ric Flair shirt, asked me if I watched it. He was talking about how he hadn't watched wrestling in 10 years, but he was drawn in, I guess, to AEW by just all the talk and speculation. He watched it, and he said he really liked it, wants to watch it again. One of his points was actually Tony Schiavone and JR bringing it back to making it feel old school, he said. And I really did like Tony Schiavone there. It made something completely different that I don't think you would have heard otherwise. But I was glad he was there. Another match that I'll go to here is Rio versus Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose kind of reminds me of Nia Jax a little bit. But it was a great, David Goliath story. And Rio was definitely the underdog. As I was watching both NXT and AEW, they kind of mirrored each other in a way. Their matches would be on at the same time. For example, the Candice LeRae match and the Rio Nyla Rose match were on during the same time. Watching it, they kind of also both had a similar story, except for in the ending where Rio actually became the first women's AEW champion, which I was a little surprised, but I'm happy they're going that route because it really brings a sense of difference to AEW. So I'm excited to see where that's going, especially with some of the people like Britt Baker and if Brandy Rhodes Wrestling and Awesome Kong, definitely. That you can just always tell that underdog story, and it'll be really great. And then the main event for AEW was that tag team match. Basically LAX, who knows what they're going to be called now. And Chris Jericho against the Elite Young Bucks and obviously Kenny Omega. I think it was awesome for Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose from WWE, to show up behind Kenny Omega and then have that whole brawl and have him go through the glass coffee table and all that. I thought it was cool while the match was going on. And then for the ending, Jake Hager, Jack Swagger formerly, I thought it was really cool that he stepped in and, and that started. But my favorite part probably was after the show, in an MJF interview, where he was talking about how now he doesn't like Jake Hager or all that, and how he's just so, he's so good. And such a great speaker on the microphone. I think he has a bright, bright future. He did say that Cody is his idol or best friend, and he will not take the championship from Cody. So I'm going to curious how that goes about in the next, probably year, I'd say, as the event keeps going and AEW does get better and learns things and just progresses. I do think that AEW will be here to stay for a while. I don't think it's going anywhere. Sometimes people are a little overhyped about it, but if you look at SmackDown ratings versus AEW ratings, SmackDown ratings were a lot huger, a lot bigger. Obviously, it was all hyped. It's on Fox and all that. But I think AEW, it was their first show, so I don't expect as many people next week. I know I will be watching it still, but especially when you have the replay on 27,000 times over the TNT, TBS, True TV, all those channels throughout the week, I don't know if that will still keep people from watching NXT or have people watch NXT and when you can watch AEW later or vice versa. But it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But overall, I think both are great shows. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan, and they should all be proud of themselves. Because I know it was a huge step. Next I'll move down to Smackdown, kicking off with your best buddy, Becky Lynch, my best buddy, best wrestler in the world. And The Rock comes out there, Baron Corbin. It was just awesome to see the Burger King crack, whatever. The Rock always has great moments. Great way to kick off the show. Give that big time feel. That pyro was great for the beginning. Actually, we'll start there with this set. I thought the set was amazing. It's probably one of the best sets, if not the best set WWE has. It reminded me of a WrestleMania feel, which not many sets can do. I know back in the long time ago, there used to be all these different sets for every show. I think that Fox set is amazing. It really makes everything feel bigger. And then with that Stone Cold kickoff and the whole intro and everything, it made me kind of feel like I was watching a football game, especially with the countdown and everything. It just felt like I was watching NFL Sunday night or NFL Thursday night or NFL Sunday. So it's really awesome to see that. They're treating Smackdown as a real sport besides some of the broadcasters, but I'm very happy to see where Smackdown is going. Sorry about that. I'm very happy to see where SmackDown's going, especially with the draft next week, and I think that will really set differences, especially with the differences between the Raw stage and the SmackDown stage, and just the different looks to the show. I really enjoyed it. With The Rock and Becky Lynch and Baron Corbin, that was an awesome moment to kick it off. Overall, it was really interesting just to see, like, they had the Shinsuke Nakamura Seth Rollins match, where obviously the Fiend happened, and then I'll also have big tag match with Dolph Ziggler and Revival and Randy Orton against Heavy Machinery and stuff. I thought that was an interesting match. Just throw on there, it shows everybody. Oh, and Braun Strowman was a big part of that, especially at the end there when him and Tyson Fury did that whole thing, and then Tyson Fury jumped the barricade and surrounded by all the people. I don't know if that was... I know it was probably something was planned. I don't know if him jumping the barricade was necessarily planned, but I'm so happy to see that he's going to be on the mic on Monday at Raw. Maybe set up a nice little crown jewel Tyson Fury versus Braun Strowman match. But that wasn't the only big time real sports athlete that was at the show. The end of the show, Brock Lesnar smashed my buddy Kofi Kingston in like less than 20 seconds. It's a really sad ending to the Kofi Kingston story because it was such a good story and I thought you could get more out of it. But I understand why they did it. And Cain Velasquez come out after Rey Mysterio got attacked and send Brock Lesnar a packing. I'm reading from all these different dirt sheets or whatever that could actually be the main event or one of the main events for Crown Jewel as well. And it's good, I guess, but I'd like to see that you could really stress that out if you wanted to. You could send it all the way to Survivor Series or something where it's a bigger show that doesn't have ridicule or whatever like Crown Jewel will. But I understand that's where they're getting the money for that match. Might as well have it. And then the Hogan versus Ric Flair for the Crown Jewel. I think that's also interesting. I'll get to that in a little bit. But to wrap up SmackDown, I want to know where The Undertaker was. And I want to know where Stone Cold were. Both were advertised. Both should have been on the show. That was bigger reason that I was watching. I was more watching SmackDown waiting for The Undertaker than I was for The Rock. I know The Rock's huge and everything. But to me, I think The Undertaker is SmackDown, right? Because The Undertaker, he's been there the whole time. When I was watching wrestling as a kid, especially, The Undertaker was the World Heavyweight Champion. He was always up there. The Dead Man. He had so many good moments on SmackDown. And I wish we would have seen him on. But I guess I understand why they didn't. They ran out of time with everything going on. But hopefully we can see them on the SmackDown next week or something like that. Just be something cool. Next I'll move to Hell in a Cell. So there's only been 4 official matches. This is why this is out so late and not Saturday afternoon or whatever. It's because I was trying to wait and see if they'd announce more matches for the card, but they haven't. So it's Sunday morning here, and so I'm releasing it a little late. Sorry about that, but there's only 4 matches for Hell in a Cell confirmed, and only 2 of those are in Hell in a Cell, so it's kind of weird, but I don't know what to think of it. But we might as well dive in. It was announced on Twitter on Saturday afternoon that Bayley will be facing Charlotte for the Women's Championship. I think this match just thrown on there because they know that they only have 3 other matches. And so I think Bayley will probably retain. Maybe with the help of Sasha Banks. But I could see why Bayley would lose the title to Charlotte sending Bayley to Raw with Sasha Banks, which is my next match that I'm going to go to in a Hell in a Cell. Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch. I think Sasha Banks will win by some chicanery by Bayley. And I think that's just simply to take the championship off of Becky Lynch and to put it on Sasha Banks so Becky Lynch can be drafted to Smackdown. And that's why, obviously, Bayley would be going to Raw as well. Just keep that Sasha Banks on Raw. Bring Becky Lynch to the A show, which is Smackdown, and have her showcase there. The next match I'll go to is Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns versus Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. I think this will be a really interesting match. I have Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns winning this match. I think the reason that they'll be winning this match, because although Luke Harper and Eric Rowan are oh so strong and everything, I think Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns, they'll want that moment, because I think that Eric Rowan and Luke Harper have other things to worry about as well. And I think it'll just progress the story. I think it'll be a cheap victory, and then Roman Reigns will get beat up afterwards, but I do think that Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan will win the match. And then for the main event, and then probably the first announced match, Seth Rollins versus The Fiend for the Universal Championship in a Hell in a Cell match. And I really hope The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, wins. Bray Wyatt's always been one of my favorite guys, and I like this transformation. You build him up so much that I don't think there's a way that he can walk out without the championship that makes him stay as credible and as huge as he is. My justification for Seth Rollins losing this match is actually that he will also be drafted to SmackDown with the draft coming up. And so I hope we see a Fiend, Bray Wyatt, as the WWE Champion on Monday night. Next I'll move down to Hogan versus Flair for Crown Jewel. You got Rollins and Rusev, Team Hogan. You got Randy Orton, maybe Baron Corbin for Team Flair. At the moment, I think that will just get better and better. You can see all sorts of different people on the teams. So I'm going to be very interested into seeing who gets put on those teams. Right now it's looking like Team Hogan is definitely the babyface team, and Team Flair is the bad guy team. And so I was thinking it's interesting maybe you could have, really, if you really tried your best, you could have Evolution on one team, which would be cool, but I don't think that Batista will be in another match. So I don't know if that will happen. But just to see what happens as it goes on, I'm definitely going to be watching. Crown Jewel could be a huge event with all the matches that could potentially happen there. And then I'll get into a little bit here, but then we'll also talk about it on the podcast coming out on Thursday for a little bit about the draft. So the NFL, or the WWE draft, obviously not the NFL draft, has been going on. It's been hyped up recently. It's been going around the rumors for a while that they're going to do the draft again to keep the brand separate. I'm very excited for this because I always love the draft, all the shocking changes and everything. And I think it would be really cool to see somebody like Kofi Kingston maybe go to Raw with the New Day. Go to Raw and have somebody like Seth Rollins, like I was mentioning, Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch. I'll go to SmackDown. I think SmackDown's going to be where the huge, I guess, magazine cover stars will be. Like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, those type of people. But I think Raw will still be a great show. They'll have people like Kofi Kingston, hopefully, and like Rusev, and still a bunch of good guys. Bray Wyatt, obviously. So a bunch of like great matches, but not the faces of the brand. And I think that will create kind of like that underdog show like SmackDown has had for Raw. I still think Raw will be great. It'll be really interesting to see if anybody gets called up from NXT. I think that if anybody's going to get called up from NXT, I think it's going to be the Street Profits. They've been on Raw and SmackDown with that hype. They're just so good. I couldn't see you keeping them on NXT, especially after they've lost to Undisputed Era. I think the Undisputed Era, it's their era, and I think they're going to continue on that track. So you might as well have them go against somebody like Breezango or something like that in the future. If you'd like to get in the discussion about this draft or about anything this week in the world of wrestling, you can always tweet us at SciSquadPod, Twitter, Instagram, anything. Just let us know what you think, and I'll be sure to get back to you. But overall, it's looking like an interesting show on Sunday, and I can't wait for Monday for Tyson Fury to have the mic. There's also some speculation, real quick, that CM Punk has signed the deal with Fox. They really liked him. I'm going to be interested to see how it all plays out. Is it going to be a WWE situation where he'll be on WWE TV and then on the Fox show as well, or if they'll just put him on the Fox show, or if we'll have potentially like one match, 2 matches just to, get that CM Punk out of him and then have him be on the show. I mean, he's so good for WWE in any way that they can take him, and so if they can just get him as an analyst broadcaster guy, I'd be okay with that, honestly, because he hasn't wrestled in a while and he's just so good, and I think he'd be great for Fox to have on their show. I think it'd definitely bring views to the first few shows, as he's had the pipe bomb, he's very outspoken, and hopefully it's that show is become like a Talking Smack, where it's not necessarily a scripted show or anything, but it's somewhat, but who knows, we'll see. Thanks for listening. As always, like, subscribe, follow all of us at SciSquadPod, and be sure to look out for the next episode on Thursday. If you haven't yet, go back to the episode this last Thursday. We talk about the hype up for AEW and Monday Night Raw. We talk about the NFL and California passing the law. We talk about the NBA, get into postseason of the MLB. We just go through a ton of stuff, and in the show we actually do a Mount Rushmore on different match types, and so I'm excited for what the future holds in WWE. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan. It's a great time to watch any wrestling at all. AEW, WWE, it's all the same. It's all pro wrestling. It's all, they want to entertain us, and I think we should just let it be and entertained by them. We shouldn't bash other products based on just liking the other product better or anything. And for that, thanks for listening. I'm Duncan, and this has been a bonus episode of the Sci Squad podcast.